The bright side of quarantine. Hi, I'm Brian Pombo. Welcome back to Brian J. Pombo Live. Today we're going to be talking about COVID-19 and the quarantine situation that's going on right now across the country, where most states have basically asked people to stay at home and self-quarantine, stay away from as many other people as possible. And you can make a whole lot of points over whether this is a good idea or a bad idea, whether it's right to have this reaction to the disease scare that's going on right now, or whether it's total over the top. All of those, you could have very good arguments one way or the other, and I think we can all see it's pretty easy to see the bad side behind what disease pandemic, imaginary or otherwise, is to people. So no matter what, we can all see the bad side. I think that's pretty clear what's going on. We may all agree or disagree on which parts are the most bad, but this is definitely a bad situation. Even if it weren't for people getting sick or dying, the economy itself is just destroyed, and probably will be for a while. Those of you who are watching in the future may know better. So either way, what's the bright side behind it? What's the good side behind COVID-19 and quarantine? And I would suggest to you that these are the best of times and the worst of times. It's one of those situations, it's all in how you deal with it. And if you don't deal with things properly, this is going to be a horrible situation for you. And if you really try hard, you could probably also come down with not only COVID-19, but any other number of diseases that haven't stopped existing, believe it or not. There are other diseases that are still out there. And if you open yourself up to them, you might just be able to attract some of them. I strongly believe in the power of the mind, and that if you get all fearful and worked up and think that everything's coming for you, it definitely is. It will. And on top of that, I think the other opposite end is true. I think that anything that we could call a bad situation can be flipped around and become a good situation for you. So I think a lot of people are going to walk away gaining something from this whole experience. Number one, the main thing people should gain is the need for emergency preparedness of some sort. Being able to have not just toilet paper, I know that's a big thing that people are talking about, but actually having some reserves of stuff that you can keep in reserve. Canned foods and just some real basic things on hand, first aid and everything else, and knowing how to use it and knowing what to do in a bad situation. This can show you how it can come up out of nowhere, and people's reactions can really take things, whether it's real or imagined, can take things way over the top to where all of a sudden nothing's open, everyone's staying at home, and people are fighting for toilet paper, okay? These are things that we would not have imagined a couple months ago, but they're right here, right now, happening. So being prepared for worst case scenarios is very helpful, and I think that's a good thing for people to be on top of if they can take that from this situation, regardless of what happens. Being able to be more prepared when something does bad happen, either if it's a local event or whether it's something that's more international like this. Another thing is that I think a lot of people could design their businesses a whole lot better, to where if you're in a situation like this, everything's not automatically shut down for you. And I mean everything's not. Obviously, there's certain things you can't control. They are going to be shut down. You're not going to be able to do much about. But you ought to have an element of your business that continues to run regardless, as best as possible, regardless of what's going on. And that's what passive income's all about. We talk a lot about that on other episodes. And being able to design your business to where it's basically, you don't need to be there running it. Me and my wife are very blessed to have businesses that we can run from just about anywhere, and actually have great clients. And so that is really necessary to be able to move forward in a time of difficulty like it is right now. And that's helpful. That's a blessing, but it's something that you can help develop for yourself. So that's something you want to think about. but also just having the perspective of not giving in to the hopelessness and fear. And I got a quick story for you. This has to do with my grandfather, Ralph Pombo Sr., who I mentioned earlier had passed away earlier this year. And he had a situation, and I know I'm going to get some of the facts wrong because these stories have been told so many times through my family that I don't remember all the details. So if any family members are watching, I understand I'm probably going to get some of this wrong. But just to understand, when he was very, very young, I don't know, 6 years old, something like that, they thought that he had come down with tuberculosis. This was in the early 1930s, mid 1930s, something like that, and that he had come down with tuberculosis, and that they had to quarantine him, like literally quarantine him in a hospital, to where he couldn't see his family for months on end. I mean, it may have been up to 6 months or something. He could not be in contact with them. He was only in contact with doctors and nurses with a mask on their face for a very long period of time at a very young age. So that was a very strange event. Also, they kept thinking that he had something else. Now, for some reason, I don't think he ever got a positive test for tuberculosis, but it was one of these things where one thing became the next thing became the next thing, and ended up in and out of the hospital a lot as a young man. A little bit later, after he was out of the hospital, his family uh, took care of cattle, had cattle ranches, and he was gored by a bull, and that was a horrible situation because that they ended up having to operate on him, ended up having to fuse his hips together to where he couldn't even bend over for the rest of his life. I mean, he had just these horrible, outrageous situations that kept him in and out of hospitals all throughout his childhood. But even after that, my grandfather had a good attitude about everything. I don't know if he was just naturally patient, but I think it kind of helped build up a patience in him that he can handle long things that are unknowns. He can allow unknowns to exist for long periods of time without appearing to let it bother him at all. And I don't think it did. I think he had a really good way of looking at things. And all of that was built up through these horrible situations. He had this wonderful, warm personality that I think came from the struggle. So it's it's one of those things. Bad things happen to everybody, you know, but it's good to step back and realize that if you handle it properly, your whole life could get better and better and better because of the bad things. In fact, they would not have happened the way they could have without those bad things happening. So remember that when you're going through the struggles right now, or if you're going through the struggles you're watching this in the future that may not have anything to do with COVID-19. It's just a metaphor. You can get through anything if you just have the right attitude, be patient, step back, keep a clear head, and just keep moving forward, and you'll find a way through it. Hey, hopefully you found this helpful tonight. We'll be back here every night. You can go check out more videos over at brianjpombo.com and check out the Amazon Proof Strategy session over there. That's on sale right now, brianjpombo.com/Amazon. And you can find out more about those on the other videos too. Hey, have a great night. In the meantime, get out there and just let the magic happen.